Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TACoS Tuesday. And we have back with us Destaney Wishon, who is an expert and everyone loves asking questions to. So welcome again, and her kitty.
Yes, Destiny and Luna today. One without the other, usually.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to see, to have another TACoS Tuesday with you and ask you some great questions. And for anyone out there, if you want to ask Destaney a question, just go ahead and put it in the comments. She's here to answer live questions for you about PPC. So any PPC questions that you do have, make sure to put them in the comments as we go. But if any of you want to say hello to us first, you can go ahead and drop your name and where you're from in the comments. We'll say hi to you. Looks like Tanbir says hello. Hi, Tanbir. And Faye from New York, hello. And Gonzalo, he's in our elite group. Welcome. Abdul, hello from Pakistan. Worldwide right here. So very good. Laura from California. Zane. Hola Pedro, Madrid, India. We were just talking about how Shivali, our other evangelist, is in the Miss India pageant right now. So hopefully she wins. Oh, well, we've got Vancouver, Florian from Vancouver, Andrew, welcome from London, Mila from Mexico, Haley, Zoe from Indiana. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of people from all over the world. Germany, Toronto, more Pakistan. Great. Thank you guys so much for joining on this TACoS Tuesday. And again, make sure that if you have questions, put them in the comments there. I'll start off with some questions here for Destaney that we can go ahead and get the ball rolling. But the first question I had for Destaney today is about Amazon Accelerate, because that is actually coming up this next week. And I know a lot of people are gearing up to go. Do you have any predictions of any announcements or any kind of upcoming things? I know it's not really like PPC focused, but just wondering what you think about like what's going to happen there.
So I'm so torn because there's been so many changes on the fee side and regulatory side that I feel like there's going to be a splash at Accelerate, but those aren't necessarily my areas of expertise. So I'm expecting to see a lot around just AMC and data. I think Amazon has done so much with like search query performance and giving us more access to insights that's probably where the biggest rollouts are going to be around, is just more access to information that allows us to make better business decisions.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And then another question I wanted to ask you is for anyone who might be starting out with Atomic to manage their PPC ads, what kind of things do you think that they should pay attention to that are kind of benefits and features of Atomic, or just kind of strategies to get started with it?
I think it's funny when you have a conversation around like Amazon advertising softwares in general, like it's always going to be bid management and keyword research. Like that's what it comes down to in order to drive success. Like no tool can provide a huge competitive advantage in those areas because we're all given the same levers to pull. But that being said, I think the area that I've seen drive a lot of success for brands and sellers is having everything in one portal. So like something that we've been playing around with a lot and done a few presentations on is like something like Market Tracker 360. Being able to directly influence your Amazon advertising based off what you're seeing within the market. Same thing as utilizing like brand metrics conversion rate data. Or I know a lot of people use Helium 10 for tracking performance and BSR and organic rank. You can easily track that and then open up Atomic and make adjustments and allocations based directly off what you're seeing in some of the other categories. That, in my opinion, is like the biggest value add. Beyond that, I think some of the features that I think really stand out are just the utilization from like an ad type expansion standpoint is really important, because I think within ad console, it can be a little bit complicated when you get into sponsor brands and sponsor display, as well as some of the day parting mechanisms of really being able to understand time of day and hour performance.
All right. Very good. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get into some of these questions from the audience. I noticed a ton are flooding in because they, so let's go ahead and start with the first one. My ACoS over the last month on a week-to-week basis has fluctuated between 21% on some weeks to 35% on other weeks. I haven't changed or adjusted bids much at all. Is that normal to have that type of fluctuation?
I would say 100% yes. The problem with PPC is it's a pay-per-click model. So that can be fantastic because we're only, getting charged when someone clicks, but it also means that if the industry or your audience changes, there can be fluctuations. A good example is, let's say your number one competitor goes out of budget during 1 week. That means that the overall CPCs in the category could decrease because your competitor is no longer bidding them up. And if your CPC decreases and you're paying less for a click, then you could see a lower ACoS. So it's pretty normal to see fluctuations either from changes in CPC, that's kind of the first thing you need to look at, or changes in conversion rate. If your conversion rate changes, that typically means your customer habits have changed. If your CPC changes, it typically means your competitor habits have changed.
Awesome. Okay. So let's take a look at this next one. This might be a little, this is a long one. What is your strategy for this? You've got a relatively popular $20 item, which is in a competitive niche. CPC is often over $2 given COGS. My max bid is set around $125. Looking at Amazon SKU economics over the last 6 months on a per unit basis, the sponsored product cost is $18.25. Click-through rate is 0.81%. Cost per click, $2.20. Conversion rate, 7.85% on one campaign, average all campaigns. So that's a lot of numbers here. ACoS is 90%. Click-through rate is 0.61. CVR, 610. And then CPC is $1.23. Looks like a very expensive hobby. What would you do?
I have 3 quick call outs for this. One, do you have repeat purchases? If you have high repeat purchases and high LTV, like maybe you're selling trash bags and they come back every 6 to 8 weeks, then this is completely different. You need to view all of your metrics on what that lifetime value looks like. A lot of people in the supplement space, for example, will pay $20 a click and have a 200% ACoS because they know that customer is going to return 4 to 5 times and not click on an ad the 4th, 5th time. If you don't have a high repeat value, I think there's kind of 2 other options you need to consider. One, if you spend more on ads, does your organic placement improve? If the answer is yes, and you have that dialed in really cleanly, because there is direct correlation if you run your ads appropriately, then sometimes it's worth spending on your advertising and taking a loss because you know you're going to move up on the page. And when you get ranked in the top 8, you can pull back slightly on ads, focus on profitability, but you're going to drive so much overall revenue because your organic ranking improved. That's the second thing you ask yourself. The third, if you're not in a position of focusing on organic rank and it's more of a expensive hobby than a brand building exercise for you, I would consider looking at external traffic and see if there's cheaper avenues to drive traffic to your listing outside of PPC, because PPC can be relatively expensive because it is the highest intent traffic we see in e-commerce.
I think that is an interesting question that he has, because I've actually seen a lot of people with this kind of question after they've launched. And so that product research is a really, really important part of the whole process and just determining if you have the money to kind of compete in those. But I have seen kind of a shift in this because of TikTok. I've seen people launch in really competitive categories, but do extremely well because of that outside traffic from TikTok and like that promotion on, just content. So those are all different things to look at and consider as well. Okay. The next one, and we can answer this. Walmart Atomic is missing some features from Amazon Atomic portfolio, including negative keywords and a few maybe more. Yes.
So I think like one thing, I'm going to go really high level. I think you can talk about some of the more specifics here and workarounds, but in general, you can't have perfect parity across the tools because there's API limitations across the tools. Amazon didn't give us a lot of these features until 4 to 5 years in. Walmart doesn't have a lot of these features directly in console. So a tool can't necessarily build them on top of it if there's no API allowing you to access those insights.
Exactly. Yeah. Negative targeting isn't even available for any, even in the Walmart Connect console. So if it's not available through Walmart Connect, then it's not going to be able to be available, in Atomic. Although once they do roll those things out, we'll try to get them up and running as fast as possible. See, someone asked, can ads accounts be suspended, and how can you see if that has happened?
You can typically see directly in ad console. You'll usually get like a red flag banner at the top of the page, or you can open up your campaign, open up the ad group and look at the product, and maybe your product was suspended or ineligible. It's not hard to find. If you have absolutely 0 impressions, then your overall ad account's probably suspended. I rarely see that happen. Typically, we only see it happen like on the asen level, or if a product gets miscategorized into one of the categories that does not allow for advertising, but you can typically see that once you open up your ad group and look at your eligibility on the asen level.
All right. Next question is from Eric, and he's asking, for brand tailored promotions, do you recommend applying a coupon for top tier audiences?
There's hundreds of different conversations we can have, and it really depends on your product. I think in general, we've seen a lot of success with brand tailored promotions. I think that there's been some arguments that that customer maybe would have already came back depending on what audience you're selecting. So you're just giving them a coupon or a discount, but we don't have to get into the psychology behind that. I think in general, we've seen a lot of success applying them, but you can also consider some of these applications on the DSP side of targeting those same audiences without a coupon, but serving them another ad depending on their purchase habits.
All right. Sean asks, what are the essential PPC campaigns that you'd recommend getting started with?
Great question. I believe Helium 10 as a whole, we're working on solving some of these questions in the space with a more actionable education. I think for this purpose, the things that we really look at is we do typically recommend running a low bid, low budget auto campaign. Auto campaigns do win more unique placements than manual campaigns, but you can't control the bid and budget. So we run them for keyword research and unique placements. We typically run profitability focused campaigns where we're optimizing our bids solely for ACoS or ROAS objectives. And we focus on our keywords that we know have already converted through our auto campaigns or the work we've done with Helium 10 keyword research. We recommend running some level of organic ranking campaigns as well. So we'll take our 2 to 3 keywords that we really care about improving our BSR on, and we'll run them at a more aggressive, higher ACoS targets, but focus on conversion rate and maximizing impression share. As we get into sponsor brands and sponsor display, it really depends on the stage of business that you're in. We almost always recommend running sponsor brands, especially if you have video assets, if you have lifestyle images, but brands don't always have those. We do recommend running sponsored display product targeting in a really granular fashion and views remarketing. But if you only have a $500 a month budget, don't invest in those. And all of these ins and outs and expectations is where it gets difficult in recommending what campaigns are essential. For a big brand, all of them are essential. For a small brand, start with the first 3 I mentioned.
All right. Pedro asks, for sponsor display, when should we choose CPC versus CPM?
Great question. So there are 2 very different models and typically 2 different levels of targeting. CPC is the format we typically recommend starting with. So we like to run just CPC product targeting ads. When you start moving into like retargeting and some of the other initiatives, CPM is an option. There will be a lot of people who will post view CPM results with a $29 return on ad spend or a 5% ACoS, but that's not actually that accurate. A CPC ad, a customer clicked on it, so you know the ad did its job. A view CPM ad, a customer can view it for 1 second and then purchase your product later, and Amazon will give it credit. That doesn't mean it's bad. That just means the results sometimes look inflated or better than average, because think about how many times you scroll a product detail page and glance at an ad. You don't actually remember the ad, but you glanced at it and then maybe you bought it. Amazon's going to give that ad credit if it's view CPM. So they're both fantastic. They both have different targeting types, but understand that a view CPM can sometimes frequently be inflated.
All right. Ahmed asks, how many keywords should I put inside exact match campaigns, 1 or 5?
There's no exact science. I know like gurus in the space will be like 13.2 keywords. 13 keywords is the exact one to trigger the perfect algorithm. That's not how it works at all. It really depends on your budget. If you have a $10 a day budget, you should probably only focus on 1 keyword. If you have a $15,000 budget a day, you can put 50 keywords in a campaign. We really depend how many keywords we put on a campaign by how much we want to spend and how much we can allocate. In general, we typically say 10 to 15 keywords a campaign is what we do at Better Media. But if it's a ranking campaign or a single keyword campaign, sometimes we'll do one. Sometimes we want to just look at one keyword to see how it performs compared to everything else, and we'll do a single keyword campaign.
All right. The next one is, what is the best launching strategy for a new product?
Yep. There's a ton of different opinions on this as well. Some people recommend doing auto campaigns so you can collect a ton of data really fast. An auto campaign will cast a really wide net, and it'll rely on Amazon's algorithm to figure out where your product needs to be showcased. They're going to review your listing, review your backing keywords, and say, hey, I think this product needs to be shown here, here, here. It can be really good for expanding your keyword research, but it's also casting a wide net, so sometimes they're not profitable during launch. So we recommend starting with a low bid auto campaign to collect data on the side, and then taking all of the keywords that were prioritized from when we wrote our listing using Helium 10, and we put those in a specific campaign, typically an exact match. So we're really, really controlled. And then depending on our budget, depending on review acquisition, how many reviews we get, we'll start looking at expanding to broad match, phrase match. We'll start looking at expanding into product targeting or into sponsor brands video. But it really depends on your review acquisition strategy at that point.
All right. Andrew asked, when you're running a sponsored product targeting campaign, is there an optimum number of asens to target? And related, can you have too many or too few asens in a product targeting campaign?
I love this question. Great question. So we typically recommend like 5 to 10 asens to target. Again, it also depends on our budget. What we've seen, if you put in like 100 different asens, your budget's not distributed evenly, and 1 to 2 drive the majority of your traffic, similar to keywords. We also find that if you were to do a sponsored product category targeting campaign, it almost goes too broad. It's very similar to an auto campaign again. What we recommend doing is grouping our targeting by competitive advantage. So we'll create a product targeting campaign targeting everyone with a higher price point than us. We'll put higher price in the title. We'll target everyone with worse reviews than us and put that in the title. Maybe I sell chocolate protein and I want to target everyone else who sells chocolate protein. We'll create those groups so we can understand our competitive advantage and create our copy and our images, if it's sponsored display and sponsor brands, to align with that as well.
All right. Nimish says, for the product launch, should you go exclusively with the core 15, 20 keywords that drive sales for sure for your competitors initially, or have auto broad phrase campaigns too for keyword research or keyword sourcing?
Great question. It depends on budget. And the reason it depends on budget is we always recommend going after those 15 or 20 core keywords because you need to prove to Amazon that your product is relevant. That's how you're going to get ranked. The problem with that is those 15 to 20 keywords are almost always your most expensive. If you're thinking to bid on them, so is everyone else. So your ACoS is usually poor. So we recommend creating those campaigns for organic rank purposes, but then creating other campaigns in broad, phrase, and auto that are going to find your long tail terms that are cheaper, more profitable for you. So example, if I'm selling a water bottle, I know water bottle is going to be expensive. Everyone's going to think to target water bottle, but I have to bid on it because that's what's going to improve my organic rank. It's my most important keyword. So I'll create one campaign for that, but then I'll create another campaign where I'll target things like travel water bottle cooler, travel water bottle for kids, right? Those long tail broad phrase terms that are more profitable for me.
What do you think about, especially for people who don't have good budgets, just doing keyword research in Cerebro and instead of doing some of these like broad and phrase and auto campaigns?
I think instead of an auto campaign 100%, especially with a low budget, I do always recommend still typically running in broad and phrase if possible, because you're already going broad with your keyword research. So then putting it in broad match will just go a little bit more broad, right? So sometimes it's okay because it's going to continue to find those long tail terms. I mean, I've seen some of the craziest search terms like water bottle for preschool kids in Pennsylvania. I would have never bid on that. But the person who selected it and saw my ad, it's got like 2 clicks and maybe 2 orders. So it's really long tail and really cheap is typically what happens.
Awesome. Okay. So let's see here. We've got another question from Joe here. So we started AWD and ran out of stock in FBA. So instead of our listing being suppressed as usual, meaning ads don't deliver, our listing remained live with a 2-month estimated ship day for an order. We saw the same CTR and clicks as normal on our ads, but no conversions makes sense as customers would wait 2 months for a product. Is there a way, you guys have tracked this? If you've come across this, is it good to pause ads till they are back in FBA and then turn back on?
There's a feature within Seller Central that could be turned off with this. And I cannot remember the name of the feature right now, but it is an option in Seller Central that will turn off that little button on your buy box that's still allowing this to happen. The secondary option is turning off your ads. When people were doing like FBA, FBM, we created separate campaigns for each so we could transition really quickly because we saw our FBM had extended shipping windows. So it would always have a worse click-through rate and worse conversion rate. So we would create our FBM campaigns with lower bids because they wouldn't perform as well in our FBA campaigns with higher bids. So there's a feature, it's like in stock, out of stock, or something along those lines. I'll try to find it for you in Seller Central. But if you can't find that feature and turn it off as a whole, or you don't want to, then 100% turn off your ads and or create separate campaigns with much lower bids. So you're still getting some traffic, but it's cheaper traffic.
All right. What do you view as the proper allocation of spend between automatic broad and exact match for a mature niche item that has been on the platform for 7 years?
It's a great question. I just pulled this earlier today because all of our agency data has exact broad and phrase match really, really similar from a conversion rate CPC perspective. A lot of people think that like broad match is the worst. It goes way too broad. But if you're doing good keyword research and allocating down, it's really not. So we typically keep like auto campaign less than 20. Some brands like a little bit more, but we try to do like less than 20% of spend in auto. And then when it comes to broad phrase and exact, it really depends on performance. Supplements, for example, when we have very specific keywords that are going to be $30 to $40 bids, that will skew our exact match performance and make it look worse. So we'll be a little bit more aggressive on broad match in those campaigns. But in general, broad match, exact match, and phrase match perform relatively the same with good bid management. So from an ACoS ROAS perspective, relatively same. I think our order is, as a whole, exact match, phrase match, broad match, auto is what I looked at this morning.
Alrighty. What is a healthy ACoS for a new campaign that's gated? I sell personal lubes.
I've worked in this category. So what we found is you normally can't run sponsored products, right? So you're typically running sponsor brands video if you can get them approved. The thing that we really need to consider in this category is you do have a high repeat purchase rate typically, especially if you have specific variations that are very unique to your brand. So when I worked in this category, we would see anything from like a 70% to a 200% ACoS being healthy because we knew that they were repeat purchasing. So that was our typical targets. If you don't have high repeat purchase rates, then you probably need to focus a little bit more on profitability. Another thing to consider is if you're driving, since you can only run sponsor brands and you're driving to a store page, then that's going to also change those performance targets a little bit because your conversion rate typically decreases.
Alrighty. The next question is there a way or a technique to target ads at customers by the year of birth? Say I wanted to target people who were born in 1989. Is there a way to do that?
With display, yes. You may have too small of an audience depending on, like, let's say you wanted to use DSP and say, I want to target everyone that was born in 1989 and loved whiskey. Like maybe you're selling a whiskey glass with the name. Your audience may be too small and Amazon won't allow you. But in general, you can target based off that. Yes, it's just depending on the audience that you want to, how broad you want to go with your audience, I guess, may limit you.
All right, this next one's a long one here. There's a debate about choosing the match types. However, each match type has a different scope. You can't really say broad is better than exact. What's your take on choosing the match type for the targets from your keyword research? And later on from harvesting any targets from keyword research, I target them in exact, phrase, and broad, but negative exact them in broad and phrase ad groups. Also, any harvested search terms added into the destination group as exact. I negative exact in its sort.
Same. Not quite same, but as mentioned, we run in all match types for this reason. I don't do the waterfall negating method. You can get a little bit more granular on it, but I don't see it's that valuable systematically. But I also manage thousands of campaigns as an agency. So we run in all three match types. Like I said, I pulled up the data just now. I'm still logged in here, and we really don't see a huge difference in performance. If we see that exact match has a higher conversion rate, we'll bid a little bit higher. That's the beauty of bid management. If we see our broad match is going too broad and converting lower, then we're going to lower our bid. But we keep all three running in unison, and we don't run into any issues with this. Everything that we harvest, we continue to run because it's going to go just more and more long tail as we continue to push it to broad. Yes, there is the argument that your broad match may be pulling that exact match term, and that's why some people waterfall negate it. But I don't find that the extra granularity adds that much of a benefit. But that's, again, from a systems perspective. As a brand owner, I may disagree.
Alrighty. The next one is any way to create rules to monitor organic ranking of keywords and suggest to pause in our campaigns?
Not yet. There's no simple, easy answer for it. You can use many tools to do it. And once you see you pass a certain threshold, like there is some level of overlay, Market Tracker 360, I believe, shows you your sponsored performance and that organic rank in the same viewpoint. You would have to manually go in and pause it from there, though.
Why do some campaigns not have impressions?
If it's eligible, which we kind of discussed earlier, check in your ad group. It's typically because you're bidding too low that you're not showing up anywhere.
Alrighty. This one's a really long one here again. I have two product lines where ACoS used to be pretty stable between 15 and 35%, but since the summer, ACoS shot up 50% on regular campaigns, and on some automated campaigns hit up to 150 to 200%. These campaigns are not driving my organic rankings, and I don't have enough repeat customers to justify investing that much. How can I cut down on this volatility without sacrificing my ability to rank on those automatic keywords?
So the first thing you need to figure out is, did your ACoS increase because your CPCs increased? That's really easy to track. Go into Ad Console and see if your ACoS went up because your CPCs went up, then you can fix it with better bid management. You can lower your bids, knowing that you're probably going to lower your sales a little bit because that's how bid management works. The second thing to look at is, was it a decrease in conversion rate? Because if your conversion rate decreased, that typically means you have a listing problem. Maybe a competitor came into market and had a lower price than you. So now you're converting worse because your competitor is converting better. Maybe you had a review. Once you can identify that, you can easily solve your problem. If it's a conversion rate issue, you're going to need to fix the conversion rate and or lower your bids even more. If it's a CPC issue, figure out why your CPCs are spiking. Is it your bid management software? Do you have a placement modifier? Is it competitors again? And then you can lower your bids to drive that ACoS down quite a bit. Your bid management is 100% the number one direct correlation to your ACoS ROAS. You have to have some level of bid management solution in place.
All right. What's your campaign structure strategy for bulky variation listings?
Can you add more context in bulky variations? Are you meaning different sizes, like a 1-pack versus a 5-pack versus a 7-pack? Or I'll need more context on that one.
The next one is, I started with following auto research, performance, and product target campaigns. When is a good time to throw in phrase campaign?
Whenever your performance is good, I guess. Once you get your ACoS within target, you can always start expanding more and layering in a higher budget for those variables. Like I said, we have phrase campaigns that perform better than exact campaigns. We also have phrase campaigns that perform almost identical to exact campaigns. So it really depends on the level of performance. If your exact isn't doing too well, maybe launch a phrase and test that out.
All right. Does pausing a campaign with day parting temporarily affect its performance when it's reactivated? Is it better to pause campaigns or to lower bids with this feature?
Mm, Great question. Huge debate in that arena. We, if you're hourly parting throughout the day, we recommend lowering bids. If you are day parting, as in no ads on Saturday or Sunday, we've tested both. We don't see a huge detrimental effect. I personally prefer relying on bid management if you have the capabilities to. I think bid management's the better recommendation, but I think pausing is the easier recommendation, and they both drive a 5% difference from what we've seen, if that. So, whatever you have the systems to do.
Okay. What strategy would you advise for implementing day parting rules, especially during off peak hours?
Really, again, bid management is the best solution, is to see where your conversion rate's decreasing and optimize your bids for that. I go on this soapbox every time, but the other thing to consider is that people don't buy the moment they click. So a lot of people will look at their ads and say, hey, I have a ton of clicks at 1 a.m. Turn off my ads at 1 a.m. In reality, people are shopping and adding to cart at 1 a.m., but potentially not buying until 9 a.m. when they wake up again. So day parting is really beneficial because Amazon Marketing Stream, from an API perspective, does allow you to optimize for these areas. But also, I recommend getting incredibly caught up in it because of the lengthened purchase times. So that being said, focus on conversion rate and optimizing your bids based off the conversion rate in certain hours. Or if you need an oversimplified method, go ahead and turn them off if need be, but just test.
That's a really good point that I haven't thought about, is that people are browsing and they're saving them for when they're like, oh, I can get my credit card tomorrow or something.
Yeah. My question always is, why did they click on your ad then? Because, like, I personally don't go to Amazon unless I'm looking at purchasing something, whether then or in the future. Like, oh, I have a birthday party coming up in 2 weeks. I'm looking now. And if I look now, I'm still interested in buying. I just may not purchase until 2 weeks later. And I think people forget that part.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right. Can you explain the refine feature in the category targeting campaign?
Wow. We have some very hands-on keyboard. Like, these people know what's going on in ad console. I don't typically get this level of detail and questions. Yeah, the refine feature basically takes the category and refines it. So I always explain a category targeting campaign is similar methodology to an auto campaign. Amazon's saying, hey, this is chapstick. Let me serve an ad to everyone in the chapstick aisle, is what they're doing with a category targeting campaign, right? The refine feature lets you get a little bit more precise. They're saying, let's not target everyone in the chapstick aisle. Let's target every asen in the chapstick aisle who is higher priced than me. That can be beneficial, right? If you're showing an ad on your competitor and you have a lower price point, that's a competitive advantage. So that's one of the refinements. You can refine by reviews. You can say, hey, I want to target everyone that has 2-star reviews, because if someone's looking at a 2-star review listing, they're not going to buy it. But if they see your ad, they may buy your product. So the refine feature is just a really fantastic way to get a little bit more specific around the asens that you are targeting within your category targeting campaign.
I don't know if this is a easy one to answer, but what percentage of clicks do you think are mistakes where someone has clicked accidentally?
I'm not a lot, for being honest. And maybe I'm naive in this, but Amazon gives you click fraud data. You can pull it directly from your advertising console account. They also adjust billing, which is one of the reasons why attribution doesn't line up anywhere, is because Amazon scrapes for click fraud. The argument I always get is revenue is Amazon's highest drive, or Amazon ads is highest revenue driver. Like, of course they're going to charge you for all the clicks. But at the end of the day, if everyone's serving ads and they're not working, Amazon's revenue is going to decrease. So Amazon does, in my opinion, do a decent job of looking for click fraud. I don't know if you mean accidental, like occasional one-off clicks, but we're never going to have that answer, never going to be able to plan for that. So I don't spend too much time thinking about it.
Same. If the cost per click is $2 and the current bid is $1, should we wait until CPC is very close to bid until we can increase or decrease the bid?
If your CPC was lower, yes, you're on the right train of thought. Your CPC being higher than your bid tells me that you probably have some weird placement modifier applied that's causing your bid to be even higher than what you want it to be, or you're looking at a different time frame. Like maybe you're looking at 2 months. So your CPC is $2, but you lowered it over time because it wasn't working and now your bid's $1. So maybe look at a smaller time frame. Maybe look at what the performance was like after you made the bid change to $1 and then your CPC is closer. That'll help you understand the math quite a bit better. So I think you're on the right train of thought. Absolutely.
All right. Someone says, how long does it normally take to see ad performance improvement once you start using Atomic, using Travis's full bid rule?
That's a great question. I think it really depends. I think that yeah, it depends, as with everything else I said. If you're bleeding money, then it's going to be really quick. If
Yeah.
you are running everything just to profitability, then it's not going to make a lot of changes up front. It really kind of depends on the absolute structure. I've seen bid management take 24 hours to make a difference in an account, but it's because they were hemorrhaging money at a 200% ACoS. I think the other thing that needs to be considered is PPC's only job is to drive clicks. Like if someone clicked, they were interested. People don't click into listings just for funsies. Not we do, like as sellers and brands, but not actual customers. So the other thing you have to consider is like how your conversion rate affects your performance. I think that's always missed. One thing I'll see is, like I mentioned earlier, is a competitor will come into the category with a much lower price point. That's going to hurt your conversion rate because people are going to click into your product detail page and see a cheaper price and click out. So when something like that happens in the market, your PPC is now going to change because your PPC is going to continue to drive the same amount of clicks, but now maybe they're not buying. So your ACoS is going to increase. So that's why it's really important to understand when there's a change in your performance. Is it a bid or is it a category conversion rate issue? So that was a little bit of a tangent, but I think it was kind of related.
Good. How are you doing? You've been answering lots and lots of questions.
We're great.
I think we have just a few more. Okay, good.
People are coming in hot.
Yeah, there's a lot of good questions and we might not have time to do all of them, but maybe we can just do a few more. So how frequent should we optimize and what is the best look back window?
Look back window depends on how quickly you're collecting data. For example, I've worked in some very high traffic categories. The term protein, if it would get 20,000 clicks in one day, which means their look back window needs to be almost every 30 minutes pretty much to optimize really quickly for all the clicks they're getting. If you're bidding on something that takes 2 weeks to get 10 clicks, then your look back window probably needs to be 2 weeks, right? So I think it's more important to look at how frequently you need to check in. Like I usually baseline like every 48 hours is a really good start. And then as you increase your traffic, make accommodations sooner or slower, depending on how many clicks you're receiving in that time frame.
All right. How can you optimize bids in bulk or manual?
Great question. The targeting tab is probably one of the best places to start nowadays within Ad Console. That's really powerful. If you're using bulk, that is a whole YouTube lesson that I would recommend going to. There's a ton of content on YouTube for this and a ton of people teaching bulk. It's a lot more complicated than just a webinar response. So you can find that easily on the internet.
Nice. Okay. For a mature listing, what % of sales should
Great
come
question.
from organic versus PPC? What do you do when most sales come from PPC and PPC sales have no profit? That's a really good question.
It's a great question. So I'm trying to decide the first question, the second question first. So in general, we recommend like a 50-50 split. If more than 50% of your sales are coming from ads, you're too reliant on ads and you probably have an organic ranking issue or poor organic rank, which is why you're having to rely on the ads at the top of the page to drive your visibility. That's the baseline. If I see that, I have less than 50% of my sales coming from ads, there's an opportunity to grow. More than 50% of my sales coming from ads, opportunity to improve my organic rank. That's kind of my baseline question. What do you do when most of your sales come from PPC and PPC sales have no profit? You have to focus on your organic rank. Like that is why you're having to rely on PPC because customers aren't scrolling to the bottom of the page where you are ranked. They're having to see it from an ad, which is at the top of the page. So that's kind of the secondary thing that you need to focus on. The problem with that is when you focus on organic rank, you're probably not going to have profit because it is very expensive to rank well organically. So you have to decide that line you want to walk between long-term increasing your organic rank and lowering your profit until you kind of hit that balance of I'm ranked really well, I can profit and pull back on ads.
All right. When starting to use Atomic, what criteria do you recommend for keyword harvesting rules and negative rules?
Great question. On the negative side, I typically don't negative aggressively because, again, if they clicked on it, it was a good ad. More than likely, it brought them into my listing. Why didn't they purchase is the question. Now, if I'm selling an Apple iPhone charger, I would negate Android charger because maybe they look the same and that's why the customer clicked, but it's obviously not going to work at all. So that's kind of the rule I use for negating. I don't like basing my negating off conversion rate. I would rather lower my bid. So I'll throw that out there. When it comes to harvesting in general, though, we typically recommend harvesting based on orders. That's our biggest metric that we use internally. If a search term drove an order, we're going to put it into a manual campaign and harvest it. And we're just going to set the bid that's appropriate. If it's doing really well and converted on incredible ACoS, it's going to be a high bid. If it was 100 clicks in one order, I'm going to set a 10-cent bid to make it profitable.
Alrighty, this is going to be the last one. How accurate is the suggested bid, and what's a good bid range when launching new products?
People always get caught up on suggested bid, and I think the part that's important to remember is the suggested bid is an average of all of the placements for that keyword. So the number one placement on the page could be $20. The 50th placement on page 5 could be 10 cents. So it's a good indicator of how competitive a market is, but it's not insanely accurate. What we recommend is launching with the suggested bid. If performance is bad, we're going to lower the bid. If performance is great, we're going to increase the bid. Like that simple. We use it as a gauge, but it's not going to be perfectly truthful because it's an average.
Awesome. Well, that's the last question. I want to say thank you to everyone for asking really awesome questions. I think this was a really good discussion, and a special thanks to Destaney too for answering for about 42 minutes straight all those questions. That's a lot to answer those questions without really pausing. So thank you so much for doing that. And everyone, we will have TACoS Tuesday again next month. So we hope you join us again. But again, thank you all for joining. Thanks for participating, and we'll see you again next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all. See ya.